Water, the most valuable resource we have, critical for human well-being and the sustainability of our planet. Water will determine how economic development, human health and environmental sustainability will be achieved. Cities, industry, agriculture and nature all compete for ever more scarce water resources. Managing these competing demands and delivering solutions to secure our water future is an unprecedented challenge. Around the world, water professionals are managing water on a daily basis, providing safe drinking water and we foster technological innovation, support sustainability and drive best practice through international frameworks and standards. Inspiring change to deliver a better water future for all.
Morning. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening, depends on where you are joining us from. Welcome to today's International Water Association webinar on the application of artificial intelligence (AI) in water and wastewater treatment. My name is Wen Ma from University of Sherbrooke in Canada, and it's my great pleasure to moderate this session today. We have another moderator, Professor Yumeng Zhao from Harbin Institute of Technology, China. Whether you are a student, an engineer, or researcher, or a leader, AI is already influencing how we learn, work, and make decisions. Some of you may already be working in this field, others may be less familiar, but are curious about what AI can bring to the water sector. And at the same time, many of us are asking the same question: how can we adapt, develop new skills, and make sure we stay relevant in this rapid evolving era of AI? I believe this is exactly what brings all of us here today. And in fact, the strong interest in this topic is really reflected by today's webinar. All 500 registration spots has been fully booked. We received more than near 2,000 registration requests. We won't let you disappointed today. Sorry, Aaron, can you? Yes, please. I forgot to ask for the request operation. And just to let you know that this webinar will be recorded and will be available on IWA website after the presentation. Can you please? Yes, please. And also, I noticed that many of you sent the question in the discussion chat box. Please pay attention that using the chat box only for the general request. And also, if you have the technical questions for the speaker, please use the Q&A box. Next slide, please. And today's agenda, we have three panel speakers. I will introduce one by one later. And then for Q&A session, if you have questions to all speakers, please first use the chat box, Q&A chat box, and then we will discuss all of them later. So we won't answer the question after each presentation. We will answer them together. Please stay us until the last presentation. Thanks. We will first introduce our first speaker is Professor Peter Van Holgen from University Laval, Canada. Next page, please, Aaron. He's a leading expert in water quality modeling and wastewater system analysis, one of the most authoritative experts in the field of AI. Peter holds a Canada research chair and leads the Model Law research group. In French, O is the water. Focusing on urban wastewater system, has played an important leadership role in both of the Water Environment Federal and the IWA. He currently chairs IWA Publishing in Quebec. He initiates the well-known Water Management Research Center, Center O. He has awarded the 2023 NSERC Donner Stickland Prize for conducting research with the highest societal impact of the natural science and engineering research in Canada. Let's welcome our first presenter, Professor Peter Van Holgen. Peter, can you please open your microphone and the video?
And I'm requesting control for the slides. Thank you so much for the introduction to the organization, Van Newman. I think the timeliness of this seminar is very good, and you just see it from the number of people. I think I've never talked in a webinar to maybe 2,000 people. It's quite impressive. So it gives a bit of stress, but it's also an opportunity to pass on some messages. I'm going to see what I have I'm now running the presentation. I do. So first, oh, this is going forward way too much. Let's go back. This is a presentation given by me, but I'm really talking for many other people. So the work, this is me in the shadow of the work being done, supporting the work of a number of students. What is happening? Okay, this is not going fine. Can I get the control back, please?
Peter, if you go late, continue going. I think you're present. Okay.
I'm in control.
Aaron?
This is not my presentation. That's
Peter,
the other presentation.
Yeah. It is just taking a minute's lag. Yeah. If you go to the next slide.
Okay. Yeah, I'm now seeing myself page, right? I think there's a bit more delay than where we practiced. That's probably
Yes.
one wrong.
Okay. Yeah. But it's your presentation. Yeah, don't worry. Thank you.
Yeah, now I see myself. It's good. So what I was going to say is that the presentation is given by me, but it's basically the work of a number of people. And what I want to discuss is the things that have been developed over the last 7 years in our research team. I have an experience of machine learning and neural networks when I graduated as a bioengineer in Belgium, starting to work with neural networks, and it didn't work at all. And about 15 years later, I tried again with a PhD student to speed up calculations, and it didn't work at all. So I'm starting from a very skeptical approach to machine learning. But since 2019, when we really started, we have one nice result after the other, and I basically want to share some of the results we have, given the with full-scale experiments. This is really not going well here. Look, I'm back here. It's taking a very long time for me to see what's happening. Okay. So that's the team a few years ago. Outside is still snow in the in Quebec, and we're very happy with the results, of course. I don't know what's going to happen, what the next slide will be. It's really tricky. This is difficult, you know.
Peter,
this is going to stay a bit for.
I would just request if you could turn off the video, because I think the internet might then work. Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, this may be on my side then. Yeah, let me see what I can switch off.
Yes, sound is great, and I think now you can just click once. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see how the clicking goes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what I basically did when I gave a talk a few years back is that the exponential increase in number of presentations and publications. This has grown exponentially. You all know this. It's happening so quickly in our life in general, and IWA has been pretty quick at picking this up. We're talking about a digital transformation. I hope now the next slide comes in. Okay, this is taking really too long time. Would it be possible for me to share the presentation from me, because I have no idea how long it takes before my next slide comes in?
Are you able to?
I clicked down 2 times and it's just going to jump. It's going to jump forward again.
Okay, then can you please share your own slides?
Or can you
Peter?
click? But this is going to.
Yes.
I'm going to share my own slides.
Yes.
Yes, I'm going to do it like this. Sorry for this, guys.
I think today, because we have a lot of participants, so that.
Yeah, that's, I think
Yes.
we're overloaded. Huh? Yeah. So let me, let me share now. I can say allow, and I go for this one, share. Okay, tell me if you can see my slides.
Yes, perfect.
And how long it takes. So if I click now, how long does it take for you to see my next slide is a question.
Yeah, it's changing. It's changing. Yes. Yes, it's okay.
It's okay? Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let's do this now. Okay, sorry for this overload of the system. Okay, I'm here on the exponential increase of work that's being done and successes that are being done. And I want to give some introduction on the rate of digital transformation in the water sector. These things are normally in the water sector, things are changing very slowly. We build things for 20, 50, 100 years, sewer systems, treatment plants. And if you want to have a change in the system, and we know if you do research how long it takes to have a new idea coming into practice, it could take 10 to 20 years. The digital transformation is much faster. It's going within a year, within 3 years, we have big changes just for phones, how quickly they change. And this is maybe good that we're a slow process because we're working with really tricky things. We're working with society depends on the water sector. So there's security, there's ethical issues with water. And if you would have too quick changes, maybe we go wrong at some point. So having the fact that this is frustrating slow is maybe a good thing for our sector, that we can build slowly and include this digital material in our work. What is also important, I think, for us to realize is that there's been a paradigm shift in how things have been decided. Before the digitalization hype existed, many of us working in the instrumentation, control, automation, data collection, modeling, were quite frustrated that things didn't move. There was a lot of ideas popping up, but things were not accepted, didn't make it to practice. And that was frustrating. Now with the digitalization, we see, and there's a hype, you can clearly see there's a hype. Utility management, so the top people want to have this. So the CEOs on utility boards, even the mayors now talk about, we need to digitize. We have now chief digital officers being installed to make it all happen, and they have to want to make it quickly. Personnel gets chance to try out different things, which was never be the case. Now we have people saying like, if you're in doubt, just give it a try. We'll see what happens. This would never have been done before. So there's an opportunity for us, and that's why I said we should get ready. And we are probably ready, but many more people should get ready to play a role in this. My talk is organized around this graph that was created by former PhD student Jean-David Terrien. The paper that is, I think, is a good paper in which this whole thing is described is below in the reference. What we're talking about is a data pipeline. It's how do you get from data on the left through modeling, data mining, into understanding and action. I will give a number of examples of things that we've done on full scale that have been benefiting from these things that we've did. I think people, and I'm talking about the wastewater sector, so I'm here to talk about the wastewater sector. Other people will talk about the drinking water supply. Wastewater is nasty. So this is what you buy from a company that sells the sensors. This is an ammonia sensor, and if you put it a few days in the water, this is how it looks. It keeps working, but it will be in trouble. So there will be things happening that are not very good, and you have to clean them, you have to install them in the best possible way, you have to do data analysis. We always take pictures before we put things into the sewer system. This is a sewer system. On the right, you see the picture after a few weeks of work where a lot of things have been collected. Amazingly, these sensors still, in this condition, they still give good results because it's at the tip of the sensor that things happen, and we make sure that the tip is clean by using compressed air that we sparge on these sensors to keep them clean for at least a few days. And we have to go once or twice a week to keep them working in the field in a sewer system, which is a lot of work, but it gives data that we need. So sensors are in trouble, they give faults, you have bias, you have drift. Sometimes the sensor fails completely, there's noise, and that noise can increase. All these things happen. And we therefore need to maintain and work with them. We need to validate data before we're going to use them in real time. And if these data come in every 5 seconds or every minute, there's a lot of work. So the sensor's amount of data is so big that you cannot do it manually anymore. You cannot watch an Excel sheet and discuss it. So we need automated measurements. Yanelsi Alferez, who was postdoc with us for 4 years and is now the chair of the MIA specialist group, the Modeling Integrated Assessment Specialist Group of IWA, she worked on a method to automatically detect faults. Her method, which we call internally the Alferez method, gets from raw data, do some pre-treatment to remove outliers, and then we can go on to the fault detection to find out which sensor is wrong and which error is existing. Now, part of the method that is there in the left box in red is quite some tricky things that was developed. It's time series prediction, outlier detection and replacement, and some smoothing. And each of these blocks has parameters to be tuned for almost every variable. And that was pretty complex because we basically needed Yanelsi to do the work for us because she had the experience to know how to change the parameters of these algorithms. This became impossible to roll out to different places because Yanelsi was no longer with us, so she had other things to do. So what we tried to, with the method that you see here in operation, you see the green line is the output, is the result. All the crosses are the outliers that have been detected. And from these data, which is now data from a full-scale plant in Denmark on suspended solids in the influent, you see the faults that are being detected. And we get, if you have level 0 is reliable data, level 1 is we have to be careful. Level 2 error label is there's really something wrong with the sensor. And we have, in this case, 8% of the data have to be discarded, are doubtful or not valid. And from literature, we know that in wastewater systems, about 5, if you're really good, up to half of the data have to be thrown away because they're just not reliable. We cannot trust them. So it's a burden on the systems that we build around these sensors to work with. So this method needed Yanelsi's expertise to do it. So what we wanted to do is replace that method with a learning system that would learn from the data properties that would allow them to do this data treatment. This was developed by Natalia Glover in her master's study. So data treatment is clearly something that is important, and data in, garbage in is garbage out is a classic for this type of discussion. So the data treatment is very important. I want to give another example of where we used machine learning methods to help come to decisions. And we know that the wastewater is a complex thing. It changes all the time. There's rain effects, there's seasonal effects, there's industry discharges. All these things happen and make that the wastewater is very time varying. So what we want to do is to use information from the past, some historical data, and use it then to create a generator of influent properties, flows, and concentrations on different timescales. The work we need is flow rate, and rain, snow, melt, groundwater infiltration is there, pollutant concentrations that change. The data collection is really difficult, so we have typically small data sets where we want to extract diurnal, weekly, seasonal properties. And we have limited data. We have a measurement campaign of 2 weeks if we're lucky. We have, of course, daily data often that we can use. But what we want to generate is long-term time series. We want to make a model over a year, be able to predict over a year to what's going to happen to treatment plant to make a good design. Or we want to predict for the next 12 hours what's going to happen to make sure that we operate the system in the best possible way. So this is where we need influent generator for. Feili was working with her in her PhD, and there's one paper at the bottom that you can look into if you want to know. What she did was to look at the data that we got on flows and concentrations, weather data, and nutrient concentrations as well at the bottom right there. And what we then did was to, again, clean the data using pre-treatment outlier detection. We have treated time series. Maybe I should point this out here. And then what we know is that there's seasonalities. There's things that are periodical. So there's daily, seasonal, yearly variation patterns. And by using a Fourier transform, you can quite easily extract this. And then we started to work on an ANN. So what the system finally does is it uses only rain and temperature data. That's enough to run and feed a neural network that she developed, using these patterns that we've extracted from historical data to produce at any moment in time flow rates and concentration data of COD, TSS. And through a multivariate regression, you see at the bottom, you can also have nutrient concentrations. I will give an example now of Quebec City. This is the beautiful city of Quebec. The old picture of the plant that was being built, 300,000 people are treated in that wastewater system. And here we see 1.5 years of data of flow. And you can see now we're in April, and we see there's big flows at the treatment plant. This is old data, but it's the same thing happening now because of snow melt. So there's snow melt happening here. In the autumn, we can have really very heavy rain periods. And at the back, we see again here another snow melt event. Of course, snow melt will lead to dilution of the concentrations. And we see that the model is able to capture this quite well. So we basically have rain data, the bars coming down give rain. This is automatically available. We put it in the model and it can calculate the flow rates. And from that, it calculates the concentrations, in this case of COD, if I'm not mistaken.
Sorry, Peter.
And you have the dilution effects that you can clearly see.
I didn't see your slides. It's stopped sharing. I'm not sure it's only me or it's for everyone like this. Can you please share again?
Peter, I think we can see the slides. Yeah, no worries.
Okay, my apology.
Sure.
I think it's my problem.
Okay, good. Yeah, please, if there's any problem, warn me.
Peter. I'm keeping tabs. Yeah, you can continue. Thank you.
Okay, you're monitoring? Yes. Okay, thank you. So the result is also for ammonia, which is an important nutrient, of course. And what we have here is the treatment plant, they don't measure every day. They measure in the weekdays. They don't measure in the weekend, the ammonia concentration. So when we want to have a full-scale data set, we want to fill up these gaps. Events, and you would not have any idea what the concentrations is. Well, the model allows us now to calculate the concentrations there, and we can have a continuous feed of the model. This is now daily data, but we can then have the diurnal profile on top of it to have the concentrations on a short time scale. That was my second example. Third example is the where we use models to increase our process understanding and also to predict things in treatment plant processes. This was work done by Mustafa Khalil, again a PhD student. You see one of the nice results of him, and he was focusing on N2O emissions, which is an important greenhouse gas, as you probably know, and which is going to be studied more and more. And having models that help us to predict how much N2O will come out of a plant is something that may help us to operate them better, to design better, to do some actions at the plant itself. There's mechanistic models that have been developed over the last 10, 15 years. There's no consensus in the field yet. There's much progress, but there's still no consensus. There's still a lot of difficulties in calibrating these models too, because there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of nonlinear interactions. And I'll just give, well, Mustafa looked into literature and found out examples of how big the ranges are of model parameters in these mechanistic models. And if you see the variation of factor 25, factor 50 between lowest and highest values that you find for the same parameter in literature, it's clear that this maybe something is still not understood well enough. So the idea of the work that Mustafa did was, why don't we try to use machine learning methods that use all the information included in all these data that we can extract. So this is the alternative that he looked into. Luckily, because experimentally he didn't have the capacity to do the work himself at his place in Edmonton, he had data collected by the group of Mark van Loosdrecht in Delft and Evelien Volk in Ghent, collect this data at the Kragningsveer wastewater treatment plant in the Netherlands, which has a configuration as you can see here, and where they collect the data of ammonia in these locations, in these oxidation ditches of ammonia, nitrate, oxygen at different locations, nitrite as well, and N2O, of course, above the plant. The good thing about this plant is it's covered completely, so if you of N2O being produced. And for 16 months. What of possible models? You have to select among these models. And what Mustafa looked at was to find models that could be interpreted and that would be transparent to the user. On the left is high interpretability and high transparency. On the right is black box modeling what's happening. The results of this, I'll give the three that he's reported in his paper, is N2O emissions in April. I don't know exactly which year it was, a few years, well, more than 10 years ago. Adabu's producing this. Deep neural networks, the one which is not transparent, gives also pretty good results, and the KNN, K-nearest neighbor, also works pretty well. So these three models look okay. Now we validate these in a different set, of course, and first look on the left graph. You see that in November, the amounts of N2 emitted are much lower. They're factored in April, which is quite a big challenge for a validation of a model. So this one ADA boost works really well. It's much worse for the DNN and the KNN models. As you can see, they're completely off. They can't have these peaks. Sometimes the peak is predicted without having the reality. The pro-choice is important. So ADA boost was selected here. And then we wanted to look at, and what Mustafa did was basically look at the features that were being used in neural networks. You see them on temperatures. Oxygen is, of course, playing a role. And then one by one, the signals were removed. And in the case we removed NO2 from the data, we got, of course, a different set. Temperature became more important. Oxygen at a certain location became important. Nitrate moved up and ammonia moved up. So this oxygen tree, which is really not important in the first model, now became really important. And why is that? Well, it's because it's measuring the oxygen at the location where the NO2 sensor was located that we dropped out. So there's clearly a replacement of information for NO2. So it's clear that NO2 has a big impact on N2 emissions or is related to it, and that's important to have the information on that. So this is how you can learn. The same thing with ammonia moving up in terms of the importance in terms of its use in the model predictions. Yeah, and there's many of these things now popping up that you have learning processes coming from these black box approaches that help us to understand better. I'm almost done. So what I'm saying here is that we have examples on full scale of data treatment and gap filling. We have talked about influence generators, I've talked about process understanding, and we've done also applications that I didn't have the time for to optimize processes. So what is my conclusion? It's happening now. As I said, I started a long time ago, and I feel now it's really full-fledged and we should take advantage of it. Sometimes you have to combine mechanistic and machine learning models to make the best of the possibilities. The challenges are not small. We're still learning a lot about how these things work, and a lot of research is being done, but practice helps us to find the proper way. Data collection keeps being the limitation of things. We have, again, since the push for digitalization is happening, a lot more data are being collected and a lot more high quality data are being collected. My feeling is that these tools have now become sufficiently mature to be used in many practical situations and give us great benefits. We have to train, and this is where this seminar is important, we have to train water professionals to see the opportunities, to see where the challenges are, and make people move forward and dare to try it. And I would say we're still in a phase where we should not overpromise. I think we should not promise that everything is possible. So I'd rather be calm and make sure there's explain to people there's still limitations. And if we can underpromise now and overdeliver, we will all benefit from this major developments. And if you want to read something more, we made an opinion paper a year ago with a number of the people that have been contributing to this work on that we should be careful not to try to apply machine learning to everything. Not everything is a nail if you see machine learning as a hammer. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm sorry for the startup. It was a bit difficult with the overloaded system. I'm going to stop the share.
Thanks very much, Peter. For everyone, if you have a question to Professor Peter Van Houten, please send your question to the chat box, and Peter cannot answer now, but if he sees some question, he can write it directly. And for general questions, he will answer after the third presenter. So let's welcome our second speaker, Dr. Nicolas Saint-Gelais. He's a co-founder and scientific director in the rising company in Canada, CanForecast. He represents a new generation of innovator, a new generation of researchers who are bridging science and real-world impact. After his postdoc work in the impact of climate change on lake water quality, he took a industrial path to bring AI solution directly into practice. In 2016, he participated in the aqua hacking competition, where his team owns an innovative solution called IntelliSwim. This experience led to the creation of the company. Today, his company supports more than 50 municipalities across Canada, France, and the United States, helping them improving water infrastructure management through data and AI. His journey from research to innovation and real-world implementation offers a great example of how AI can move from idea to impactful solutions. Let's welcome Nicolas.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So I'll share my slide, I think. Maybe easier. Just give me a second. Is it working? Can you see my slides?
Yes, Nicholas, please, you can go ahead.
Great. So I'll have my camera on for now. If there's any issue, just let me know and I can turn it off. So yeah, first I want to say it's a real pleasure to be here. And just after a great presentation just by Peter before with a lot of concept that I'm going to touch as well. Like my presentation is going to be a bit different in the sense that like what I'm going to present today is more on the asset aspect of things. So a bit like how the water is getting in and from those treatment plants. So just want to give it something different and maybe like how we implement it in municipalities. But if you have any question on other things that we do, so that'll be a pleasure. But yeah, so and I just wanted to start a presentation talking a bit about our AI journey where we started, and it was as it was mentioned. So we started in the hackathon. I was finishing my PhD back in the days. There was an hackathon in Montreal, and this is where we started development of our first like machine learning tool. IntelliSwim. I'm not going to go too deep into IntelliSwim today, but just so there's opportunity all around, so it's always good. So we started from there, and then so we developed our first model, which was to predict beach water quality, and then from that was the first model that we developed, and then a bit after, so the model for water quality was working super well. It was used in Montreal, and then another department asked us, like, like we have another big problem. So we have pipe breaks all over the cities, and we know that we are not most of the big problem is that we are not replacing these pipe in a good order. So I'm going to get more into what we're doing there, but this is where we started the second machine learning approach, which was IntelliPipes with the city of Montreal to identify where are the vulnerable pipes. After that, I think 2 years after, we started to do more flow forecasting. So into the wastewater and stormwater network, and this was for the Peel region. This is another region in Ontario, and this is another machine learning model that we developed. And then in a couple of years ago, so IntelliPipes is really a model. So as was mentioned, that was used by a lot of utilities, mainly in Canada, but also in the US. And then people were saying, okay, it's good, we're using your model, but can we have something more comprehensive? And this is where we started the development of Auto AMP, which I'm going to get into in that. And then I'm going to talk about our asset chatbot and challenges. And so I'm getting into a bit like our AI journey, but more from the asset side today in my presentation than the water quality and flow forecasting. Again, I think it's really important to talk about the team because I'm part of it, scientific director, but there's a lot of people. And what I think is important for us is really like that we have different expertise. So we have data scientists, but people with very different backgrounds. So hydrology background, people from asset background, and what is very important for us, and this is something that Peter mentioned, is that like AI is not like for everything, and we have also so we have people with statistical and data scientist background in house, because sometimes there's a statistical approach that is better anyway. So we like to play with these different things. And what is very important, something that we learned early on, because of course our challenge is that we need the tool to be used by the end user, which is in our case 90% of the time is the utility or municipality. So we also have a team of front-end developers just to make sure that that person can interact with our model and then send data or just ask questions. And also back-end developer just to make sure that we can automate that AI behind it, and then something just it's automated, it runs all the time. I'm going to go into it, but just so we have data scientist side of it with very diverse diversity of people, stats, and also like a development side, because it's critical that when people want to use it, it works. And just as mentioned, so just give it quickly. So most of our clients are in Canada, so this is the map of Canada for people that don't know, but this is a bit like we're coast to coast. And so as mentioned, so I have a PhD. I think we have 3 employees with a PhD, so we have a really strong like co-development approach. So this is just an example of one of our clients that won an award because he implemented IntelliPipes into his municipality. So this is what we want to do. We want to understand the problem of the people we're working with and make something that works. And we also do publications, not as much as I was doing during I was in academia, but still we're still publishing when we can. And we have one client that is, because this is also some limitation, sometimes the data we cannot always publish on, but when we can, we want to share also what we do, like we do today. So I'm going to start talking again about IntelliPipes, which is the first machine learning model that we developed. Again, it's very different from having something water treatment, but there is some similarity. So the problem we started, and this is the big number just to show, but every day, and this is for North America, I look for the world number, I was not able to find it. And so there's around 150 water main breaks, right? So this is a big problem. Like you probably experienced it, like in Montreal, we had a big one a couple of years ago. So it's happening all over. And so that means that if I'm a medium utility, it means that this year I'm going to get on average 500 breaks. This is for Canada, it's colder, so we get a bit more, but it means like 5 million in direct repair costs I lose. It's not only because of breaks, but I'll lose maybe around 25% of my water, right? So it's just a major problem. And the main problem, like it's not magical, people know about it, is that the main problem is age-based replacements. Right? So for assets, and I'm talking about pipes, but it can be about any water treatment asset, is that often what we assume is that let's replace the oldest assets first, and then because they will be in worse condition, and then we can go from there. But that's not usually the best approach. And then so what's happening is that we leave in the ground pipes that should be replaced because they are in very bad condition and going to break like year after year, and we replace pipes that are still good for many years just because the oldest one. So this is just an example that I want to share here that we did with the City of Montreal. And so what you have here on the y-axis is the average break rate. And so this is a very critical metric of how good that asset is. So how good that pipe is. So when it's very high, it's in very bad condition. So this is the limit that is established by the City of Montreal, which is still very high, which is 42 breaks per 100 miles. And on the x-axis, this is the age of the pipe. So you have many lines because it's a court, right? You have a bunch of pipes. And so what you can see here is that you have and it's the same material, like cast iron. So what you can see in the blue here, so you have pipes with at 30 years, very low break rate, 60 years, very low break rates, even 120 years, that cohort, very low break rate. And you have another cohort, still cast iron, and at 50 years, the break rate is to the roof. 100 breaks per 100 miles is very big. So, like you cannot only use age, you need to use other factors to identify, and there's many of them. So this is same material, very different profile. So this is why this is where we started. It's like, okay, let's say you have a budget. Like, let's work with you to optimize it to make sure that for each dollar you invest, you get more water and then you have more, like a better service level to the user. So here, this is IntelliPipe for water. So we use a bunch of variables depending on what's available, right? So there's maybe large municipalities, they have like pressure data, they have soil data. So the more we have, the better we can be. But at least we want like installation date, age, diameter, length, break history, and then other factor that we can use. And then sometimes like, because we don't need like on every pipe, but when you have like a couple of soil measure and things like that, because corrosion can be a very important factor. So what we do, we use this factor that we have, and then we develop this machine learning model, which is, it's a grouping model. So what we want to do is to group together into cohorts, so it's pipes that behave the same way. So pipes that, and then what we can do after is tell the municipality, this is the cohorts of pipe that you should prioritize for replacing. So, and then we just group them, and then they can go for rehab after. Of course, when we started, people were like, okay, it's good, you can show on your with past data that it's working well, but like, do I trust AI to prioritize asset that I'm going to replace into water distribution? Could be wastewater as well. And so initially what we did is that we told them, okay, like we're going to give you forecasts of the most at-risk cohort. So what we do usually, like this is common practice, it's like you aim to replace 1% of your network per year, because on average, you're going to replace all your network in 100 years. So this is this is the objective. And so we told them, like, we're going to give you forecasts. Let's wait for 2 years. We're patient. And then after 2 years, we'll see if what the algorithm identified was already what would break. I won't go into all the details, but so this is just the general result. So the breaks that would be potentially avoided. So every year what we did, we compared the method they were using to if they would replace using the algorithm. Of course, sometimes there's limitation. This is perfect scenario, but just to give you the main result, this is like using age-based approach. So like in that year, it would be one pipe that broke would be identified by that replacement method. Compared to a telepipe, which is the line here, it would be 20 to 25 breaks that could be avoided per year if you replace those. And the in-between method is another method that they could use, which was closer, but still, which is using the history of breaks. But just to say that, okay, now people were seeing, okay, I can really see the value of better replacing my asset, and just they were seeing like that they could save first. Here, I'm not going to, but of course, it's just money, but many things, right? So you save water, of course, you save electricity, but because all of the electricity pump that water, and even direct costs. It's known that direct costs of a break are just 20% of the total cost, right? Because of course there's traffic, there's all like, anyway, so it's just a lot of costs that can be avoided. And again, I'm talking about pipes, but it's different type of asset, and this is a bit where we move after and we can apply that. But just initially we did that pilot project, and this is after that people started to use more the tool. But then one of the challenge, of course, is that okay, the tool was working super well, but then people are saying, okay, but even if I have good information on the asset to replace, what I do right now is every 5 years, I just sit and decide I make a plan for asset replacement for the next 5 years, which are called asset management plan. And it's still not dynamic. So it's still something that is, and even if you tell me today I should replace that pipe, but I have a plan that is established, right? So that was the second phase that we started to work with them a couple of years ago. Actually, and we got some funding to do so, because the problem is that, so when you do asset management for water, again, often it's for compliance. At least here, if they want to get funding, they need to do an asset management. So they do one, they don't really want to do one because it takes a lot of time. It's updated only a few years, and it's not that huge, right? So what we want to work with them is say, okay, we have that IntelliPipes tool, let's put it in something and bring like some AI tools around it to add really dynamic, data-driven like asset management for water, and then just only static reports that are not used, right? Just how can we improve that, something that is dynamic? I know I have a pipe that broke this year. Let's see, my budget is changing. What can I do? It's just something. It becomes a very dynamic loop of things that you can do. So this is more where we started to do I think it was 2 years ago, and now we're at the phase where we have more municipality asking for it than we can take on, because it's really something that they want to use, which is a good sign. And so what we start is, of course, our typical user for now are municipalities, utilities, and we ask them two things. So first is they upload, of course, data to the platform, and so we talk about it. I'm going to talk quickly about it, but of course, and I think there was some question also about data quality. It is critical, right? So garbage in, garbage out. So what we do is we do a lot of QA/QC of that data, just to make sure that, for example, we get I have a PVC pipe, which is a type of plastic installed in the 1920s. It's not possible. There was no PVC at that time. So we do a lot of QA/QC just to make sure that model results are good, and we've seen the improvement. So this is a big part of what we're doing. And so we get reports, and then they configure their needs. What is my budget, level of service, climate change strategy? So anything they can input in the platform. Then I'm going to get into the AI toolbox that we have within the platform, where we clean, structure, and enrich that data using things like IntelliPipes. After we use that clean and structured data, and then we generate a dynamic asset management plan, right? So it's user data, we enrich that data, and then they have a report that they can interact with. And then we see that people are using it a lot. And then now asset management for the water is just not something that they do every year, but just often that they test scenarios, and then so the council asks for something and then it can change it. So it becomes a loop, which is really what we wanted at the beginning, right? So they can export the information and all of this. And so at the heart of it, I'm not going to get too much into ETL, but of course we clean, validate that data, detect anomalies, which is critical. Then we have, of course, the LLM portion. I'm going to talk about it at the end as well. But it was very useful for us to extract information from any report on many things, automated some text creation, and have a chatbot. And then what's the core of it is we have some ML tool that we integrated in that. IntelliPipe is like the art of that tool, right? It was developed about having, and then we call it IntelliPipe, but now we do it for other assets. So it's still the name that we use, but it's just model to identify most at-risk asset. And then, so that's the art. And then I'm going to talk quickly after that we develop also the brain, which we call cerebellum, which is the optimization of investment tool. Because just to get there, and then again, it's a bit what I talked at the beginning, but utilities operate under very limited budget, will it be for distribution or the treatment phase. So they need to see which asset I need to prioritize, right? So for example, here we start with a very simple situation. I have a pipe. I know I can replace that wastewater pipe. I know I have a cost, and I know that if I replace it, I gain X year of remaining useful life. So if I replace it, for example, I'm back at 80 years of remaining useful life. If I do other activities like relining, for example, I know I have a cost, and I know the impact on useful life. So Cerebellum, what it's doing, it's an optimization tool. So it learns how assets deteriorate, but not from like books or what is expected, but really what we observe and see, okay, I have these cohorts, and what I want to do is predict future condition and failure. And from that brain, what we do is we do that optimization. Right now, we do it mainly for drinking water. And then you get, okay, this is your 10-year investment plan, which asset you need to treat, when to act, cost per year. So, and then the thing is that as your hypothesis change, you rerun the thing. And it's a basic optimization problem. So this is more a statistical approach to it, but we added AI to it to get it more precise. So this is, for example, 10-year investment plan from one of the users. So this is what I need to do: replacement, minor rehab, major rehab, and then you see your plan on 10 years. And this is the effect on your target break rate. So what I'm gonna get less and less break, you invest that money. And then at the end, what they can see. So this is an example of one client that we have. So this is the city in Ontario, and then what they can see, okay, these are the assets that you need to replace the next 2 years, short term, medium term, and long term, and then they can extract that list and really implement it. Right? Which was the challenge at the beginning, is just, okay, these are my most at risk, and then they can make a plan. Of course, there's other things that come into play after, but they can make a plan, and this is what we want. We want to be like generate that enrich information, but it can be used, right? But then the next challenge, of course, is that, okay, it's good that we can predict. So we give like later failure for water main pipes, water pipes, and wastewater. But then, of course, there's other assets to take into account, because there's a complexity. If I just redone the road, I'm not going to reopen to change my water asset, even if it's at risk, right? So this is an even bigger optimization problem, and even for the likelihood of failure, is that we need to take into account other assets like wastewater, stormwater, drinking water, and roads as well. So it's an even bigger problem that we're working on right now, just to get, okay, how can we get a prioritization about even larger assets? And there's other assets like even water treatment plants that need to be taken into account. And today, just to finish my presentation, I'm good on time, but yeah, so just what we moved to, and that was another request, because okay, we are in the era of LLM, so large language models, so we can afford ChatGPT and these kind of things. So and so we had one of the clients. So we have, of course, on our end, a very large database for assets, right? So we know the cost of replacement, we know where they are, and then there was one of the people that we were one of the user that asked us, okay, but like I'm in front of console, they asked me a question on my asset, I don't have the information. Could I ask a question on my phone right away and get the answer? And we were like, okay, that's an interesting problem. And then we had another user, and this is also on the limit maybe of those tools, that was like, okay, I use Copilot. I was asking for a regulation on drinking water regulation in my municipalities to Copilot, was accessing my data. And just as we all experienced, Copilot just made a regulation. Of course, they knew it wasn't real, but just so hallucination. So it was interesting that they can use LLM to access that information asset, because then you can, instead of searching, say, okay, how many cast iron pipe I have? What's the risk with those pipes? Where they are? So, but at the same time, there was the hallucination problem. It's something that we wanted to work on, because utilities are a gold mine of data. There's structured, unstructured data a bit all over the place. Data hard to access and definitely underused, but we want to be able to get that information without hallucination, right? So this is where we decided, okay, can we do a very focused LLM so that we work on it and it's really made for asset information, and then can get insight from these sources and being able to answer operational question. And when we started that, the objective was that can we get 95% accuracy? And a big part of the work, and this was something that a lot of our clients work with us. So people send us question and then ask the question that they would want, and then we build with time a database of 10,000 questions. And this is like, like to benchmark the model and saying, okay, we want to be more than 95% accurate with these 10,000 questions. And so we use two different approaches. First, structured data retrieval, which is more, I would say, a prompt engineering approach. So just classical, and then provide data structure to the LLM, and then the tool can do maps. So different, I'm going to show quickly after what it can do, but this it's meant to answer like relatively simple question. What's the total length of cast iron pipe installed between 49 and the 70s, right? So we can ask, and then we have another unstructured data retrieval. I'm not going to in depth, but this is more a RAG approach. And then we have document, and when we have them into knowledge graph, and this is very powerful. So we store document, chunk entity, and then user can ask what's the primary method of disinfection in the water distribution system, for example. And then what I'm going to show you after, what is more important is that you can get the source, exactly where that information is coming from. So just quickly, just show you a bit how it's working. So can ask simple questions. So can you map the 5 pipes most at risk 500 meters around the school? So we're going to process that data. I'm going to show you after. So here you can say it took 9 seconds, so it's very quick. And then they get a map when they can see, and they can click on the actual pipe, see the information. They can download the shapefile because, of course, they're going to use it in ArcGIS on other software, but they can really get the information right away. So in 9 seconds, you can get, and then you can look at different critical infrastructure. If the answer was good, you can say yes. If it was bad, and then we're going to take a look at it. But just quickly, you can get any type of information. This is something that's just a lot of value, but that was validated. So you can have confidence in what you're asking. And then here, I just asked another question about greenhouse gases emission for the total mid. Anyway, the question is not maybe that important. So we get an answer. You can ask about your budget. But what is most important is that you get what is the source. So where the AI got that information. And then you can see the source, and then you can see also, like, if you, I don't have the example here, but you can go on source, and then you can look at the different documents and see where it was coming from. So it's just getting that information and putting it in a structure that can be accessed easily, and then you can trust that the information is good. And so just tested on those questions, which was really important for us. And this is the last thing I have. So when we started on standard LLM ChatGPT, we were getting like 90% accuracy, which seems high, but that means that you get one hallucination on every 10 answers, which is can be problematic, especially when we rely for operational decision making. So far the result that we have, so we are at over 99% accuracy. So almost, there's few hallucinations here and there, but it's very rare, just by developing something that is really that we made, and the RAG approach is often really something that was very powerful for this kind of approach. So I'm gonna end on this. I think I'm at the end of my time, but just from data to decision, what our experience have been so far on the asset world is just there's a lot of data, underused, fragmented, AI, and there's some approach where it can be really useful, but it needs to be put in a way that they can interact with it, and it makes sense for them, and that they can trust. This is really the thing that you need to show them, that they can trust it. It takes time, and definitely, I think something that was mentioned, AI is not replacing expertise. It's really bringing like more information to take better decisions. So yeah, that was my presentation for today. So if there's any question, I will be happy to answer. But thank you.
Thanks very much, Nicolas, for the inspiring presentation. To everyone, if you have questions to Nicolas, please don't hesitate to ask in the Q&A chat box, because I saw many questions are asked on the general chat box, because there are so many messages and it will be passed by easily. So please use the Q&A session to ask us a question. Let's welcome our third speaker, Professor Robin Dai from Tongji University. Professor Dai represents a new generation of academic leader, a young and dynamic researcher advancing the integration of AI with membrane-based water treatment. His work combines high-impact publications, patent technologies, and real-world applications in full-scale system. In specific, he works on the field of membrane technology, published excellent leading work in leading journals such as Nature Water, Science Advance, and Environmental Science and Technology. He holds several US patents. Some of them has been applied in full-scale system. His work also received multiple international awards, highlighting both scientific excellence and the real-world impact. Professor Dai, you can start your presentation.
Thank you, Ma, for introduction. And so I will start my presentation just here. Yeah. Hi, everyone. And my topic today is about that we want to use the data knowledge code-driven machine learning to understand the process that the polyamide membrane for the rejection of micropollutants. And this work is almost done by the PhD student He Jia Wang, and also supported by my colleague Zhiwei Wang. And this is the outline of my presentation. And there's 5 parts. And the first one is about the background to introduce why we use data knowledge code-driven machine learning to replace the conventional machine learning. And these are 3 parts of 3 types of knowledge we want to incorporate into the machine learning. And the final part is about the conclusions. So first is the background. That we know that for our audience in IWA, we know that about the organic micropollutants. That is a concern for everyone, and we want to remove it from water. And polyamide membrane, like including the nanofiltration reverse osmosis membranes that has been used in our house, in municipal wastewater treatment plant, and in industrial wastewater treatment plants, have emerged as important candidates for the removal of the micropollutants. But such process is quite complex. Although we always think that the membrane structure is simple, but actually when the membrane was used to remove the micropollutants, there are several mechanisms, including the side sieving, the donor exclusion, about the affinity, and also the polarization. So we're considering about these mechanisms, and also the different memories have different memory characteristics, and also there's many types of micropollutants in the water and wastewater, and the operating conditions are quite different for different plants. So these different features, how they will influence the removal of the micropollutants, and what's the underlying mechanisms of this process. So we want to use the machine learning to understand this process. But from previous slides, we know that the advantages of the machine learning. But the key for achieving high quality machine learning is the data, and we want to get sufficient and high quality data. But when we could try to collect the data about the membrane rejection, the rejection of the micropollutants by membranes from the literatures, we find that there's only 2,400 data points from this relevant literature. We know that for the data sets, this 2,000 data is quite small. So for this such small data set, we can just like if there's a small data set like a fuel for our car, we cannot reach the destination if we lack of this data. So if we want to make our car into the destination, so we can incorporate the knowledge into the machine learning. This is we call it knowledge is just like the road sign here. So the key of why we use the data knowledge code driven. This is the reason because the data scarcity we want to use knowledge to address such problem. So we want to use three types of knowledge embedding strategies to improve the performance of machine learning. The first part is to uh, to build a relationship between the features, and the second part is about to introduce the causal relationships, and the third part is about that the internet scale information is more about the large language models. So I want to introduce the first part is feature relationship. So we know that there's many properties for the micropollutants and many characteristics about the memories. There's different mechanisms for this process. If we want to predict such process, there's more than 20 features for such process. So what we do is about that we make some transformation of the data. For example, for the size exclusion, we can originally we input the size of the micropollutant and the pore size of the membranes, and we introduce the phi here, and this phi can make build a correlation between the molecular radius and the membrane pore size, and also for the charge effect, the if we don't the charge product we introduce the charge products, it means that it is the product of the zeta potential of the membrane and the molecular charge. So if their product is larger than zero, we know that there's a electrostatic repulsion between the molecular and the molecule and the membrane. If the product is less than zero, so there's attraction between the micropollutant and the membrane. And also we consider the dissociation that introduce the log D to tell the machine that the dissociation will affect the hydrophobicity of the micropollutants. So we introduced three dependent variables, including phi, charge product, and log D in this model. And to compare our model that this is our model that data knowledge code-driven model, it can better understand the impact of the hydrophobicity and also the impact of the charge. And also for this line, that this DKD model represents the data knowledge code-driven model, and this DD model is the conventional data-driven model. You can see that the feature importance ranking is changed, has been largely changed. The phi is a new parameter we introduced, plays a most important role in these feature importance figures. And also we find that the DKD model decision compared with the DD model, it relies more on the phi rather than the conventional molecular radius and the pore sizes. And in the rankings of the pH, pKa, and log KW, these are more their importance decreased because we introduced a new feature about the hydrophobicity. Hydrophobicity is log D. And we can see from this figure that log D plays a more important role than this pKa and pH and log KOW. And we can analyze the model, we can analyze the results of the model via this process, and we try to distinct to how to say that to change to just to the change the polymer memory to NF and R memories based on the pore size of the memories. So we can see that for the NF memories, we can analyze we can get the contributions of different mechanisms, including the size exclusion is this, the yellow and orange one, and for the blue part is the charge effect and also the hydrophobic interactions. And also we can see the contribution of the operation parameters. So we can just compare the mechanisms of the rejection of micropollutants by polyamide memories. That for the size exclusions, we can see that plays a dominant role in the rejection of microprotons by NF and R memories. Compared with R memories, NF memories relies more on charge effect and have hydrophobic interactions. We know that from the literature that we can just to guess which mechanism dominates the process of rejection process of certain microprotons, but our model can allow us to quantify the detailed contribution of different mechanisms in the rejection of the microprotons by both NF and R memories. And then we are thinking about one problem is that for our conventional models, we also considering that all the features they are parallel and their contribution actually they have a potential logic underlying their logic or there are some connections between these features, but like the picture in the right, we can see that if this is the one parameter, it has a direct if it is for example like zeta potential or the pH, it can impact the OMP rejection by the memories, but there's also the direct effects and also there's indirect effects for this process. So we can draw a picture from, we can read a lot of literature and then to draw one picture like this. It's just like how solvent viscosity to impact the steric hinges, and then there's the rejection of OMPS, and also the roughness, the surface group, how these parameters affect the water contact angle of the membrane. Then it impacts the affinity between the membrane and micropollutants. So this is we can also call it a knowledge from the literature that there is a current relationship between these complex features and also the rejection of the micropollutant. But the problem is that we don't know the contribution of each this pathway or how this contribution can be. We don't know. So we employ we establish a customized causal inference framework, like we use a double machine learning and to analyze. So it's just like a feature here that through this double machine learning or the customized machine learning, we can get the contribution of each pathway. You can see that from this figure, the pH, we know that it impacts more on the membrane zeta potential than the molecular charge. And there's also the contribution of different pathway. So if we simplify this figure, we can get this right one that the pH contributes more through the memory properties than the molecular charge. And also we know that pH will impact the hydrophobicity of the molecule, or just like the micropollutants. But actually this pathway is not important in the OMP rejection. So this is the picture we draw before, that the knowledge we obtained from the literature. If we conducted the double machine learning, so we can get a figure like this. We know all the contributions in each pathway, and it allows us to find the most important features we want to optimize. Or if we design a new memory, we can if we design a new memory, we can see this picture and know that which parameter should I regulate first. And the final part is the internet scale information. Actually, we know that large language models are very popular now, and so this model is trained with the internet scale information. So we are curious about this one question that can we use large language models to understand the nanoscale mechanisms of this micropollutant rejection by memories. So it's just like what? It's just like if we use a large language models, it's just like a cannon. And also there's a conventional machine learning models. We can see like a gun. Which one is better to shoot the bird? We don't know. So we developed a process for One is the large language models, and we will try to use the original large language models to predict or to understand such rejection process. And also we will fine-tune the memory, fine-tune the model to see that if the performance will be improved after the fine-tuning. And also we improve the XGBoost, the conventional machine learning models to see if it can which one can be better to predict the process. And we can see from this figure that with the GPT-4o mini and the GPT-4o, and there's also GPT 4.1 mini. These models have a just high MAE and high RMSE. It means that the model is performed did not perform well in the prediction mission for the memory rejection process. And when we fine-tuned our models, we can see from this figure that their performance improved largely, and we can have a simple conclusion that after fine-tuning, the large language models can be used to predict or to understand the rejection process, but actually the fine-tuned large language models still performed worse than we see as the conventional models. So we are thinking about why we know that the large language models are trained with many chips and consumes many electricity, but its performance in such small process is worse than the conventional small machine learning models. So we guess that the transformer architecture is more effective at capturing the sequential dependencies in text than at handling structured numerical features. Their structured data in this study is the rejection data of the membrane. And we are guessing that if we convert the structural data into text sequences will lead to the information loss and redundancy. So there's a simple conclusion that the larger model did not represent the better model. So the take-home messages is about that we use different strategies to incorporate knowledge into the machine learning models, and the contribution of the rejection mechanisms in diverse memories and microprotein rejections can be quantified via the knowledge embedding. And also, we can use previous causal associations and to use double machine learning to understand the contribution to obtain the contributions of the different pathways and to guide us to design novel memories or design novel memory processes. And also for the large language models, actually we are still doing some works about large language models, and now after fine tuning, we can largely improve the large language models performance, even exceeding the conventional machine learning models. But in this study, we reported the large language models still have a potential or have a long way to go for such a regression-based modeling process. And there's implications about this. The data knowledge core-driven machine learning approaches have a broad potential applications in memory separation modeling. But we can see that we can say that for different environmental engineering or water treatment process, like advanced oxidation process or other processes, we think that the data knowledge core-driven machine learning can also be applied to understand those macroscopic processes for different environmental processes. And thank you. And we want to thank the support from the National Natural Science Foundation of China and from Shanghai government. And thanks for your attention. And any questions are welcome. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Robin. For our audience, if you have a specific question to Professor Dai, you can type it in the Q&A session. I saw that Nicholas and Peter already answered most of them, but if you have questions, please keep put it in the chat box. And can I invite all panel speakers to open the camera and microphone so that we can have a small discussion. We can have a 15 minutes discussion on some questions I collected from the chat box. I organize them into two categories. For the questions for students that either just started or want to start but don't know where to start. And another type of question is for people that already worked in this field. I want to ask one question for both point of view of academia and the industry. First is for Peter and Robin. Do you think that whether the AI model can replace the traditional wastewater treatment model, for example, the mathematic model used for the active sludge treatment, whether they can replace this model?
So it's asking Peter and I?
Yes.
So Peter, can I ask this question first? I don't know.
Peter, do you want
it seems
to,
that some lag in his computer. So maybe I can ask this question. Yeah.
Yes.
From my point of view, that I don't think that the AI model can replace the conventional. I know that the ASM, all these models about the user conventional models. I think, but in the future, maybe the AI can help to predict the errors between the real value and the actually the prediction results from the conventional models. And we are doing works about this. Yes, we think there's many combination pathways between the AI models and the conventional models. One is how to AI to predict the error and to improve the performance of the conventional models. And another one is you try to incorporate the conventional models into AI models is also another way to do it. This is my point of view. Yes. Okay, thank you.
So it's still student has to study the traditional models, the fundamental mathematics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Peter, do you have any comments on this?
I would say it depends. Yeah, I think we just opened up the modeling toolbox wider. And I think depending on the objective, you will have to choose one or the other. I think for the time being, I see still a lot of use for the classic ASM models or the mechanistic models. I think they're still around and we have. But there's new things, new asks for models that are different and that probably are best answered. Keep track of all these things, then learn everything you can to make sure that you can take the right model and make it work for your application. I think it's very much important that people think about the purpose of what they want to do with a model.
Okay. So
and the good thing about machine learning, this is something I want to share, is that people learn quickly. If I see how my graduate students coming in, how quickly they're up and running with these techniques, it's quite amazing, much faster than with the traditional modeling. So if you want to have the whole box, you should invest quite some time in mechanistic modeling, I think, in process knowledge, and then build on quite quickly. You have the data-driven modeling that can help you with other topics.
Thanks very much, Peter. And Nicholas, I have for this question from, do you think that is there an increase in job opportunity in AI for the water engineering graduate students? And also from industrial perspective, what kind of profile are most required in today? For example, whether students need a strong programming skills or they can still contribute with a traditional engineering background?
That is a very good question. I can talk from Earth's perspective of a small company, right? So I cannot talk for other, but for what we are looking for is not people that have strong coding. Like we like people when they have like some coding abilities, but we want people like strong background. Like we have people with hydrology background, we have people with a different type of background and engineering background, and then they can learn to code. Even today, it's even simpler. Like you need to have that background, but that deep understanding to validate what the machine learning is producing, and just as Peter was saying, and as like it's very important. So that deep knowledge, like so we always favor having master student, PhD student that understand well and that they can, like supervise what is going on, more than having capacity. But if you can learn Python and learn these new languages emerging, I think it's very important. But like training first for us, that's always what we're going for. And also like having a diversity within the team, like having engineers, hydrologists, all those people talking together is what we see in this trend. So for us, this is the approach that we have.
Okay, so what I heard is take home message for environmental engineering, chemical engineering students is you still have to learn the the engineer background knowledge, and then take advantage of the AI, so that you learn new things, just learn more and more new things.
But
Thanks
if you're
so
a data if you're a data analysis statistician or a person has been specialized in this, I think you should also do the effort to learn a bit on the other side. So the fact that you move together and that the communication can happen and everybody keeps its own expertise and specialty, we need to keep that going. Making all the same is not going to be good. We have to have different opinion, different expertise. But being able to communicate is essential, and that asks investment. That's time you have to have, and building a team that develops this gradually is so important.
Thanks. Next question that for students want to start in this area. Any suggestion that how to start a small project or learning from new course? Peter, do you have any suggestion on this?
If you have somebody in the group that has done it already, let's put them next to that person, the most efficient ones. And because there's so many things there, and I think you can study for 4 years and have a reasonable grasp on what these methods are, but we typically don't have the time. I think you have to choose either I'm going to be a data analyst and that's what I'm focusing on, and then I will learn on the job what the applications are, the domain knowledge. If you're a chemical engineer, environmental engineer, water engineer, then you go in a team that has this experience already. You start developing, but many things is just doing. Getting your first Python code and then start working on it and developing things, on the job.
Okay, thanks. Robin, how did you started using the AI tools for your specific field, research field, membranes?
Yeah, actually, I major in engineering during my bachelor, master, and the PhD. But actually, I learned it via the online video during my master degree, and because I'm curious about this process that use AI or that neural network, and I think it's very interesting. But actually, after finishing my PhD, when I go to work, when I see that there's a potential to combine the AI and the memory separation process. So just I learned it by first I learned Python first, and then I practice coding to the videos online in Bilibili in China, So there's many resources online. We can learn it to practice the Python, and then that you actually after the implementation of the large language models, the coding become very simple, especially for this. I think that the coding in environmental engineering, specifically in our memory separation region, becomes simple after using the large language models. So we would like to suggest the students to use a cloud and LLM to facilitate their coding skills and to write some just to code and to conduct some projects about the memory separation. But the key is that when now we can use the natural language to code, the key is that you have to know more about the environmental engineering. Actually, like the Nicholas said, that we want to know more people have a strong engineering background or the scientific background. Just not, we don't want to the people that they can only code. So this is the question. So we would like the students like from environmental engineering or from the materials or chemistry like this because we know that for these students, they learn to learn the coding skill. Nowadays, I think it's not a difficult thing. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Robin. I think that in summary, first, the study process is not as difficult as what you think. Just to start, then looking for resource online, and for a video that's close to your project, and just get started.
Yeah, right.
And
yeah,
also
yeah, yeah.
the traditional science and engineer is still important. So for our students, it's still important. And
yeah, yeah.
Nicolas, do you have any information want to share or?
Yeah, I can add a couple of things, but again, it's been a long time since I've been in school, but like when I was back in the days, it's just as mentioned, like all that for me started in hackathon. I'm a biologist by training, but I was interested by data science, and I was looking for opportunity to do it. So like look for opportunity around you, like if there's, and it, like for me it was in school. I was doing my PhD, and we organized an house at that hackathon, and then we invited us. Wait, just look for opportunity to do things. When I was like talking before, I was always saying to people, like sometimes we think too much, but just do things, try a different tool, try a different like machine learning. Now these days I see I give this with a warning, a bit like mentioned. Now it's so easy to develop something like vibe code, like it just, what I tell people I work with, it's just take time to think also before you want to develop something. It's easy, I have that idea, I want something, and this is when knowledge is so important. Like think about, okay, what is useful, what I want to do. We need to think it more and more, like plan more what we do. But it's just a great time to learn, right? There's so many tools, so using all these tools to learn, as Peter was saying, to get more knowledge. And I think this is a great time. And look for opportunity all around you. They're there, and it's just jump.
Just get started. And
I
want to ask.
I would like to. Can I just
yes,
confirm what
please.
Nicolas is saying? I think it's very important that people keep thinking, as you said, that we don't believe everything's coming out. Hallucinations are everywhere, and we see the problems that this causes. Critical thinking, taking the time not to rush things too quickly, because time is sometimes now it's going really fast and too fast, and we don't take the time anymore to take a moment, look at what's coming out, and see what is useful or not. So that critical element is very important to be able to really extract the most of the tools we have now.
Thanks, sir.
And not ruin the things because we do.
Thanks very much. I want to ask the last question. I do think it's important. It's for the people that already worked here and just have a concern about the risk and the future of AI, whether it can be adapted in the traditional environmental water wastewater treatment plant, whether we can trust the AI tools.
I have no doubt. If the people have the critical sense of doing things and not just believe anything coming out, this is the trick. This is the tricky part. I think it's potential is huge, but we can do so bad things with it if we are not using our own brain still too.
I think that's because as long as it's constant manual operation, there is a risk. So that's why that people have concerns on the application of AI, replace of some task by AI. Nicolas, do you have some comments on the practical application?
Yeah, just something very quick. I really love what Peter was saying. It's just like under promise, over deliver. I can give an example. We're talking with someone like telling us like, I want to know 2 weeks in advance, like if I'm gonna get a breaks on the pipes, depending, like in winter, like it's not possible. It's just there's these things that it's just we need to be really realistic and critical about everything going out of it. It's just so, and under promise is very important, I think, because like it's not gonna solve everything. It's not like it's just now maybe we see it's imaginary, but yeah, just it's very powerful, but just be critical and just it would be easy to say, oh yeah, maybe I can like do these things, but just be critical and say, okay, let's go step by step and build confidence, because we don't want to go too far. Like we work with people that are worried that they're gonna lose their job because like it's just but it's not where it's going. So yeah, like education, take the time, like.
Thanks. my apology. I have to stop here because I have to do one last announcement for the future coming IWA event. And just for all participants, we appreciate that you share the time with us. We hope that you enjoyed today's webinar. And there are 3 new IWA webinars in the coming 1 week or 2 weeks. Then Aaron is showing here. One is the PFAS in April 21st, and the next one is in April 21st also. If you are interested in just check the registration link. And next one is in June. Registration is still open. And the last slide, please, Aaron. I remember that there is a code. Yes, there is a code that you can use this code. And when you register to be a IWA membership, there is a discount. I hope everyone can use it because it's very useful when you go to any IWA conference. Yes, please, Peter, you have any question? Peter, Aaron, do we still have some time to talk here? Yes, please.
I hope it's just we are looking for 2 postdocs in learning. So if you have this, you can come. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Wenman. Thank you to all the speakers. And thank you to all the participants for being patient across the session. And I will like to mention that we will share the recording and the presentation with all the participants in the coming week. So please keep an eye on that. And meanwhile, as Wenma mentioned, for all the people who are new to IWA, please visit our website and look out for other webinars as well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to all the speakers, and thank you to the moderator. Have a nice day.
Have a great day and have a great evening to all. I think I invite all panel speakers to join another post.
Recording stopped.